Hey friends, I've been wanting to review this Flugel for a while and frankly just never get around to it. And so now I'm finally getting around to it. So I'm very excited. This is a John Packer JP175 Flugel in satin lacquer. And this is basically the same Flugel as like the ACB Doubler's Flugel. The Allora flugels you might see on the market sometimes. I think Dillon has a flugel. This is like the same budget flugel that you're seeing like the big brass shops. From what I can tell, I think they're made in the same factory. Like they're essentially the same. I know like when we go through them, we do some inspections and checking. There's often, sometimes with the mouthpipe receiver, the lead pipe here, sometimes that has to be opened up a little bit for the mouthpiece to sit properly. That's like a common adjustment that we're making. And then we're going through just to do other like quality checks and things like that. And there's some small amount of adjustments that we do, an inspection that we do to try to make sure that like everything works as it should, slides work as they should, valves work good. Usually the valves are pretty consistent. The big problem, like I mentioned before, is just making sure that the lead pipe is opened up appropriately to fit a mouthpiece, because that will affect your intonation to some degree. But let's talk a little bit about this horn. So there's a few different mindsets for Flugel out there. Now, if you have plenty of disposable income and just like having the very, very best, regardless of how much you need an instrument, then buying the Taylor Flugels, the AR Resonance Flugels, any of these high-end $4,000 and up Flugelhorns, great. Those horns sound better, they play better, they're better in tune, they're better crafted, they're phenomenal. And if you've got the money and the inclination and desire to do it, knock yourself out. More power to you. But for a lot of people, they need an instrument that, like, maybe you're in high school or college and you're trying to get like an affordable Flugelhorn. Or frankly, like for myself, I just don't play that much Flugel. I play with a jazz big band that plays on average about twice a month. On a given night, we'll have Flugel called in the book for about 10 to 20 seconds. And some nights not at all. So it just doesn't make sense for me to spend $3,000 on a Flugel, or $4,000, or $5,000, or $7,000, because I don't particularly really like playing Flugel. I don't like hate it, but it's it's just not like a thing. If I'm at home, I'm not grabbing a Flugelhorn to practice it. So it doesn't really make sense for me to spend that kind of money. And so that's where a horn like this can really kind of scratch that itch. These horns sell for about $800 or so. They come with a pretty nice little outfit. They'll come with a hard shell case that will hold the instrument, has an outside pocket, comes with a mouthpiece that's like, essentially it's like a copy of the Dennis Wick style mouthpiece. And it's decent. The mouthpiece itself is decent. It's not great, but it's okay. I'll demo that here in just a minute. I do think getting a little better mouthpiece is a better choice in general. Straps for the outside of the case and stuff like that. Here's what that mouthpiece looks like. It's, like I said, it's like a Dennis Wick copy. And so these horns are really pretty nice. So it comes in a variety of different finishes. This is the satin lacquer, which is my favorite finish. I just think this is kind of the most appealing overall. I probably wouldn't get the silver. I think the silver, A, brightens up the sound, and then B, also tarnishes over time. I wouldn't get raw brass for the same reason. I don't think I like the way the brushed finish looks better than clear lacquer, so those two would be the one I'd choose from. But you've got a yellow brass bell and yellow brass tuning slide and receivers, and valve balusters there. And then you've got a rose brass branch right through there. Adds a little bit of warmth to it. You've got 3 water keys here, and there. And then you've got a 3rd slide trigger to get your low Ds and C sharps in tune. And this instrument sounds and plays great, all for under $1,000. Now, does it sound and have as good as intonation as a Carol Brass even, or a Taylor, whatever? No. No, it doesn't. I'll just say that right now. It does not. Is it good enough, though, for any of those instruments, especially considering it's half the price of a Carol, half the price to a third of the price of a Carol Brass, and it's, you know, obviously what, you know, a fourth, a fifth, a tenth of the price of some of those other super horns that we mentioned. And so for what it is, it's really nice. The intonation on this horn with a good mouthpiece, and here I'm using an AR resonance, but with a good mouthpiece is pretty decent from the top of the staff and below. It gets a little funky above the staff and can go, for me, it can go a little flat. So you have to just sort of like watch that. And of course the key, and I don't play a lot of Flugel, so this might be part of it, but the key is to make sure that your starting pitch is that you're in tune. A lot of people, it's real easy to start high on the pitch on Flugel, and so you got to make sure it's centered. So that's centered right there. You can hear that G is just a touch flat, but it's not bad. I would think you'd find that to be really, really acceptable anywhere you're playing. And I can definitely lip it, because that note on most horns wants to be sharp, on most like trumpets and stuff like that. So I can easily pull that G in tune. If I'm playing the C where it's supposed to sit in the slot. If I'm playing high on the C, then I'm going to have a hard time getting that G in tune. So once I get to that G, I am having to think, like, move the pitch up a little bit, and I'm holding that like high on the pitch all the way up to that high C. And it sounds great, and it totally works well. Sounds good, and most of the time, at least in my experience, when I'm playing Flugel, I'm not usually playing, that's a G is about as high as I'm often going, maybe an A, but most of the stuff is right in the staff, and the tuning on this is really good for that. So it really, really sounds nice for that. That, like I said, with a nice mouthpiece, if we just put the mouthpiece that comes with it, it's okay. It's not bad. I noticed the pitch problems are worse on this mouthpiece. I kind of like the way it sounds in the middle register. It's a little darker and fuller sounding, but the pitch is pretty bad above the staff. So yeah, that's something to kind of be aware of. You know, if you buy this horn, I would just budget in getting a decent mouthpiece. Decent mouthpiece would be, I mean, gosh, I've got a Stomvi that I've played with this that played nice. AR resonance sounds good. The Lotus mouthpieces sound good. On the Lotus, you can get the Gen 2 or Gen 3. It doesn't matter. There's no changes between those two series on the Flugel mouthpieces. But I think if you are needing a nice horn that's under $1,000, this is a great choice. If you need to buy a Flugelhorn from a very practical perspective. You know, I don't want to spend a lot of money on this. I'd rather put more money into my other instruments, or I just don't have the money to put a lot into it. This is a great choice. If you want a better instrument, an instrument that like still isn't like top of the line, but I want better intonation, like I want better build quality. I just want to invest in a better instrument. I can afford it. I think the Carol Brass instruments are nicer. If I was to own one, own a Flugel, which actually at the moment I don't own a Flugel, funny enough, for a guy who owns a music store, but I don't own a Flugel. But if I did, I would probably own the Carol Brass, because I do think it's nicer and worth the money. But I play so little Flugel that I kind of just don't really care. Anyway, that's sort of how I feel about it. So if that's you, you just need a Flugel because like I just need it for when it calls for it, and I want to put a lot of money into it. This is an amazing choice. Or if you're in high school or in college and it wouldn't be very smart for you to put a lot of money into it, this is a great choice. If you got $1,500 to $3,000 to spend and you want a nice Flugel, go Carol Brass. And if you've reached that point in your life where money's not really much of an object for your hobbies, and you can drop $4,000 or more, then the Taylor and the AR Resonance and those other high-end Flugels are really, really nice if you're really, really into Flugel. So, all right, friends, hope that helps. Hope that makes sense. This is the John Packer 175 Flugel, available over at ErnieWilliamson.com. I've got a couple of them in stock right now. I've gone through, inspected, and checked them, make sure they all sound great. They're ready for you. So head over there and get one for yourself. Thanks for watching.